Hello again, rail fans, and welcome back to another video. We began this journey on January 8th, 2021, and as we were doing our routine drive around central Ohio looking for trains, I saw some headlights coming from the east on the CSX Scottslong Secondary. We quickly turned around, and not a moment too soon, the railroad crossing was activated for our train, which happened to be CSX H708 heading to Columbus, Ohio, to do some switching at Parsons Yard after bringing some cars in from Marysville. We then move forward a couple weeks to January 17th, 2021, and we are still on the CSX Scottslong Secondary, but we are in Amelin, Ohio this time. Amelin is a very small suburb that's between Dublin and Hilliard, but it's more closer to Dublin, and it's also next to the CSX Scottslong Secondary. Now, normally we wouldn't go out in weather like this. It was briskly snowing when we came out, but we had a good reason to, so we stuck out for it anyway. The train we caught was once again CSX H708, but this time heading back to Marysville after working Parsons Yard in Columbus, with a very special locomotive on the point of the train running long hood forward. What was assigned to take H708 today was CSX locomotive 4814. Now, if you're a veteran rail fan like me, you would recognize this as being an SD70 Mac. But if you're part of CSX, you would recognize it as an SD70 AC. Personally, those two identifications mean the same to me, so, yeah. CSX added 129 of these locomotives back in 2004 on top of the 90 SD70 ACs they already had, which included the ones originally built for CSX and the smattering that came from Conrail during the 1999 split. So in total, that's 330 SD70 ACs that CSX had at one point. Now, the reason why SD70 ACs are so special now these days is because they're a dying breed. The ones with flat radiators, which carry the numbers 4500 through 4589, a select few of them have been rebuilt at Huntington, West Virginia into SD70 Mesas, or continue to have their SD70 AC ID. Now, for the ones with flared radiators that carry the number 4701 through 4830, almost all of them have been put into storage, alongside some of the other SD70 ACs that have not entered into the rebuilding program yet. Aside from the SD70 ACs that have been rebuilt, there are only 5 SD70 ACs that have not been rebuilt yet and are still in active service. Their numbers are 4582, 4758, 4792, 4800, and 4814. So if you hear any of these locomotives that are in your area, try your best to catch them because their days are limited as of right now, as far as we know. After seeing 4814 we then see 4814 again the very next day on January 18th, 2021, aka Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day. Now this wasn't our original plan, because our original plan was to go over to Buckeye to see Y103 switching, which had CSX 4582 on the point, which was one of the other SD70 ACs that are still in service and haven't been rebuilt yet, but that plan didn't work out too well, so we decided to go for 4814 again. When we got there, he was just sitting there awaiting a new crew, and when the new crew arrived, we were able to walk alongside the train to get some close-up shots of it. And just to tell you right now, we were okayed by the crew to get close to the train, so get off my back. Anyways, let's hear the relaxing sound of an EMD 710 prime mover in idle. I know, right? SD70 Mac, or SD70 AC. One of only few that's in active service today. After walking alongside the big EMD and walking back to where we parked the cars, CSX granted H708 permission to depart from where he stood, which left him clear track almost the entire journey back to Marysville. The quote-unquote Mac attack continued a couple of days later on January 20th, 2021, and as we were crossing Buckeye Yard, I noticed that the other SD70 AC that I saw a few days ago, CSX 4582, was still in Columbus, and I tried my best to get some pictures. This one is kind of okay, but you can't really see it well because of the chain link fence, so let's see if we can get a better picture. This picture is slightly better, but not the best. But at least I was able to get some forms of pictures of 4582 because this was the last we would see of him for quite some time. Anyways, let's move on, shall we? After seeing 4582, we then moved to the Central Ohio Model Railroad Club on January 21st, 2021. And on this particular day, It was our day to come here for the daily operating session that happens once a week. And plus, daylight is starting to become a lot longer during the evening hours, so I wanted to see if I can get at least a couple of trains to pass the club before it was time for me to go inside and run my model trains. The first train to come up was a lone CSX SD40-3 as it was making its way northbound up the CSX BERT line. Presumably, this locomotive was assigned to CSX Y222, which is the beer plant switcher that runs from Parsons Yard in Columbus, Ohio to Worthington, Ohio to pick up some grain cars from the beer plant and bring them back to Parsons Yard. Shortly after Y222 cleared, an NS southbound Autorack train makes its way through on the Sandusky district, and this happens to be the first NS train we would see in this video, led by a lone EMD SD70 ACC rebuild. After seeing those two trains, we then find ourselves next to NS's Dayton District on January 24th, 2021. On this particular day, I heard off of heritageunits.com and some friends of mine that NS 1065, the Savannah and Atlanta Heritage Unit, was on NS 179 that day, so we came out to see if we can catch it. Our original plan was to go down Clover Way, which is in Lincoln Village, which is next to CP 144 on the Dayton District, but that plan didn't work. So we then relocated to Hague Avenue, where the train was sitting, awaiting clearance by the dispatcher to continue his way west. Since we have some time to kill before 179 gets his clearance to leave, let's take a look at the locomotives on the front of the train. Leading the train today was NS 1031. An SD70 Ace, which was built in 2011 by the Electromotive Division. Behind 1031 on 179 today was NS 9454, a C44-9W, which was built by General Electric in 2000. After the waiting game continued for another good 5 to 10 minutes, 179 was granted clearance by the dispatcher to depart from where he stood to continue his way west, and as you can hear, the engineer on 179 had to throw both locomotives wide open because it was a big train today. From what I've heard, 179 on this day was nearly 14,000 feet long, which is a new record for me because this is now the longest train that I was able to shoot. train continued to pass very slowly, we then find NS 1065 wedged between two grain cars working just as hard to help NS 1031 and 9454 lug this 14,000-foot train from a standstill. After seeing NS 1065 at Hague Avenue, we then moved to Powell Road on February 3rd, 2021. On this particular day, I've been hearing talk about NS 179 having two Union Pacific locomotives on it, as well as an NS High Hood, so we came out to see if we can try and get it. A friend of mine from the Central Ohio Railfanning group had the same idea as well. Unfortunately, we did not get the train we were hoping to see, but we got a couple other trains instead, so let's see those. Right as we pulled the car into the parking lot next to the tracks, I got my shoes swamped while climbing up the embankment to get to the tracks. But I didn't have much time to play around with because NS Intermodal Train 218 was right on our tails. good 20 minutes or so went by since 218 cleared when here came northbound NS Manifest Train 170, coming from Chattanooga, Tennessee, bound for Conway, Pennsylvania. Unfortunately, this was the last train we will see on this day. After seeing the two NS trains at Powell Road, we then moved to the very next day on February 4th, 2021. On this particular day, it was time to come down to the Central Ohio Model Railroad Club to do our weekly operating session. Also, throughout the day, I've been hearing talk about NS 42G having a patched SP unit trailing second out. 42G is a unit grain train that runs from Clyde, Ohio to Baldwin, Georgia, and it's an as-needed train. Basically, whenever Baldwin needs grain, they're going to run this train. Shortly after getting one of my model trains DCC'd, we then went outside to the railroad tracks to watch 42G pass, and not too long after we came out, 42G made its way south, revealing that the patched Southern Pacific unit was on the train as advertised. As NS-42G makes its way into the empty, snowy darkness, we then come to the end of yet another video. As you saw, the first 2 months of 2021, it's safe to say that 2021 is off to a good start. Anyways, hit the like button down below, leave a comment and tell me what you think of it, subscribe to my channel, and tap the bell button to be notified when I get a new video out. This is All Ohio Railfan, signing out.